Children don't want us to pull advice out of thin air. Children want honesty. Children want to hear our honest experiences. This is the only way that we can reach our kids and have a chance at actually influencing their decisions in a positive way. Hello, my name is Miss O, and welcome to Naturally Inspired. Today, I am naturally inspired to talk about a topic that has been on my mind for a while, and this is talking to our children about sex. I know that this can be a profoundly uncomfortable conversation for parents to have with children, and a lot of this has to do with how we were raised, the culture under which we were raised. This is why so many euphemisms exist for sex. The birds and the bees, Netflix and chill, do the do, which is one of my favorites, planting a seed, grown-up time, and making love, which I love. Not love to do the act. Yeah, I love to do the act, but it's a phrase that I love. What is your personal favorite euphemism for sex? As uncomfortable as it may be, to avoid having this conversation is to put your child in direct danger. It takes only a few seconds for your child's life to change forever. So, let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good things and the bad things that may be. Let's talk about sex. Like the song says, there are good things that can come from having sex. There are bad things that can come from having sex. Talking about sex is us raising healthy, empowered, and resilient children. If we don't talk to our kids about sex, they're getting advice from friends who are just as much in the dark as they are. They're getting advice from social media. There's just so much information out there that it is in your children's best interest for you to have this conversation with them. And then let's not talk about X-rated videos being at their fingertips. And we know what kind of havoc that they are wreaking on society and on our mentality when it comes to sex. At different stages of your child's life, you will talk about sex differently. My advice is that pre-puberty, just as your children get ready to go through the changes that come along with puberty, talk to your kids about sex in a textbook way, a biological way. Talk to them about what to expect as their body changes and what these changes mean. Boys start to produce sperm, which fertilizes the female's egg, and this is how a baby is made that is carried in the female body. For teenagers, I suggest you talk to them about relationships and the feelings involved when they find someone that they like. Physical touch and the feelings that this stirs up. Ask them what they and their friends talk about as far as sex goes. This will give you some insight into the conversations that they're having, what they know, and what they're in the dark about. Ask them if any of their friends are having sex. I know they might not tell you this, but by asking them these questions, whether in that moment they are open about it or not, it does let them know that in the future, if they are having any of these feelings that just come with growing up and liking people, they know that you are there to answer their questions. Think about your first experience and whether you felt empowered or not. What would have made you feel empowered? Is it a decision that you regret? Do you think you could have done it differently? Think about it, and I think this might help guide your conversation with your children. I find a lot of parents are so uncomfortable talking about their first experience with their children. It might be because it's not something that we're proud of. It might be that it was a really traumatic experience, and I'm taking the traumatic experiences out of this conversation because this is a totally different conversation to have with your kid if you're comfortable having it with your child. But if it was consensual, it might be that now in retrospect you think that it was the wrong decision and you're uncomfortable with it. But I think this is a really important conversation to have with your child, using your experience as an example. Children don't want us to pull advice out of thin air. Children want honesty. Children want to hear our honest experiences. This is the only way that we can reach our kids and have a chance at actually influencing their decisions in a positive way. I, for one, honestly am not embarrassed about my first time. It wasn't ideal. I look back now and I understand why I did it the way that I did it, because of where my mind was at. And this is something that I will share in another video. I find that parents also use scare tactics to speak about sex with their children. Scare tactics do not work when your child gets to a certain age. Why? Because they are feeling things that are so overwhelming and they need the real. They need informed guidance, guidance rooted in reality. I had a young lady volunteer at a holiday program that I used to run. She was 18 at the time and very much enthusiastic about boys and dating. And I remember she relayed what her mom told her about her mom's first time. Her mom was a teen mom, and she told her that this boy lied to her and tricked her into having sex. She didn't know what to expect and what was going to happen. It was all a trick, and she should be really, really scared. Her advice to her daughter was that she should be really, really scared of boys because boys will trick you. Maybe because she was a teen mom, she's embarrassed about having had a child at that age, and probably because she was ostracized or parents were really strict and made her feel like she had done something really, really bad, and she just hasn't reconciled that in her life, which is why she's using these scare tactics. This is an opportunity to tell your kid about what you were feeling, what you were going through, and how, as much as that child wasn't planned, if you could go back into the past, you would have done it differently. We don't go through what we went through and made the mistakes that we made to come and leave them in the dark. If you're ashamed, the more reason to have these conversations, because you don't know how you might be sparing your kids from the same experiences that you had. These are the exact type of empowering conversations that you might not have had as a teenager, as a young adult, that you could have with your child and empower them to make better decisions. With my young adults, I talk about sex in two ways. Firstly, I tell them that sex isn't just a physical act. I know personally, when I was young in my early 20s, because of what I was going through psychologically, I thought sex was just a physical act. Sex is very much mental. Your mental state, the way you value yourself, the way you value your body, is going to determine your decisions about sex. Sex is also emotional. Your feelings get involved. And this might not be for every single partner that you are with, but sex is very much tied to your emotions. And sex is spiritual. This is something that I now know as an adult that I didn't understand before. I remember in my early 20s, I had a friend who used to say that everyone you sleep with rubs off on you, or a little bit of them, a little bit of their soul stays with you, and a little bit of your soul goes with them. And we would go back and forth about this, and I just didn't believe it, because when I was young, because of certain traumas that I had been through, I saw sex just as a physical act. But with age and experience, I know very much that sex is spiritual. Sex is very energetic. It is a really strong energy exchange. What someone carries in their spirit and what you carry in your spirit when you get together and have sex is interchanged. The second conversation I have with young adults about sex is sex and alcohol do not go together. If you go out drinking and meet someone that very night, I advise not to have sex under the influence of alcohol. My advice is always to sleep on it. If you wake up the next day and you want to do it, by all means, be safe and go ahead. I talk specifically about alcohol because this was my drug of choice when I was in my salad days, when I was partying, out and about, meeting boys. And from my personal experience, this is what I advise my young people. No sex and alcohol. It's different if you're doing it with someone that you are in a relationship with and you trust that person. And anyone who has lived that partying life and who has lived in pickup culture can understand where I'm coming from. Sex is so natural. It's like death, inheritance. The easier we can make these conversations, the more empowered our children will be. My name is Miss O. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.